Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode, Introduction, Who Are We and What Are We Doing?
Sarah. What movie are we doing this week?
We're continuing to talk about the greatest movie ever made, Tombstone.
Sarah, I thought Goodfellas was the greatest movie ever made.
Yes, but also Tombstone, one of the best movies ever made. Don't make me choose, and also don't hold me accountable for anything that I say ever.
Sarah loves Tombstone so much, and we were having so much fun talking about Tombstone that we had to make this into a two-parter because the stress of cutting down what was going to wind up being a 5-hour conversation about a 2-hour and 10-minute movie was just too much. So we decided to spread it out over 2 episodes. I will repeat the trigger warning from last time. Also, our podcast has an explicit rating, so I shouldn't have to say this, but we curse.
We do.
And this movie and episode contain references to and/or depictions of guns shooting people, cowboys, Hollywood development overlap, potentially confusing end credits, addiction, animal abuse, death, shootouts, racism, Bible quotes, sex workers, gambling, violence, alcohol abuse, opioid abuse, smoking, contemplation of the afterlife, face slapping, animal abuse. Oh my God, I said animal abuse twice. Tuberculosis, ableism, vaudeville, and conversations in Latin.
It is kind of essential to listen to part 1 of this first, so we would recommend that you start there rather than start here if you're starting for the first time. Even though I think we all know the plot of this movie because it's been made 6,000 times.
This is the most fun version.
Yes. Oh, yes. All other movies are just boring Tombstone compared to Tombstone.
Sarah, I have to give the spoiler warning again.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, you do.
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned.
Indeed.
So, our sources are in part 1, so we're not going to talk through all that again. All right, where did we leave off last week?
We left off at the mayor of Tombstone, played by Terry O'Quinn, guilt-tripping the Earp brothers into service. And that is a thing that happens. Sam Elliott becomes the town marshal or the sheriff or something. And we were laughing at how, like...
right.
This town issuing a no-gun ordinance is like a comical waste of energy.
Yes. I was comparing an Old West town doing a non-gun ordinance to that warning on the Q-tip box that says, don't stick this in your ear.
Yes, and I compared it to a Big Ten school that says that their frats don't do any hazing.
Agreed. And as I've been doing a little more reading this week, I discovered that one of the ways people got around the don't carry guns in town thing was by saying, well, I was just coming into town. I have to put the gun away. I can't be at my house before I get to town. Or by saying, I was just leaving town and I'm allowed to have the gun out of town. So you could get around it by saying, oh, I'm on my way home.
I mean, this sounds like the most toothless law until the Prohibition came around. Where everyone's like, I have a workaround that allows me to not have to follow the rules. I would add that this movie is, like all good Westerns, a searing indictment of the inefficiency of government bureaucracy, while also being very pro-law and order and being like, all of the money should go to hiring marshals, and we don't need all of these men with tiny mustaches who look similar to each other, John Tenney and Terry O'Quinn, who are dictating rules that no one will follow.
Yeah.
And we also find out here too that Wyatt Earp says he's only shot one man, which I don't believe that to be true.
It is debatable. Having attempted to read 4 different books about Wyatt Earp and Tombstone, this is debatable.
I don't believe that. It is on its face absurd to even suggest it in a movie like Tombstone. But Tombstone, the movie, is looking at me and it's going, stop being a party pooper and have a good time. That's what I'm here for. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we're in the bar again. Dana Delaney still in town, theater troupe still here, and she's singing it's not Oh My Darling Clementine, and it's not Oh Susanna, but it's one of those.
It's something about a river.
Oh, she's singing the Red River Valley.
Red River Valley.
Yeah, it literally doesn't matter. And Doc is in the middle of a long game of cards that's been going on for like days with one of the Clantons.
We already know that time is meaningless in Tombstone and that every night is a Groundhog Day time loop at the theater.
Yes. And Doc is quite drunk, but he's having a good time and he is kicking Ike Clanton's ass. And at one point, Ike says something about this game not being fair. And I lolled at this where Doc responds to him, I know, let's have a spelling contest. And then Doc collapses and Ike is accusing the casino of cheating, which I never. A casino cheating?
I am shocked, yes, shocked to find that gambling goes on here.
My goodness gracious, a casino stacking the odds. I can't believe such a thing would happen. How could he even begin to accuse the noble profession of casino proprietorship of having unclean hands?
I know. So Kate collects Doc's winnings and Virgil responds to the situation by pistol butting Ike in the head. He hits him in the head with the butt of his pistol. So this practice was called buffaloing, and it was considered an example of police restraint to merely buffalo the suspect because it wasn't as bad as shooting them. If you only hit someone in the head with your pistol butt, you're not trying to kill them.
That's true. You may be trying to give them the kind of head trauma that will turn them into a serial killer later on, but you are not shooting them. I would imagine there are places you can go now where you can still have this done to you and the cops will be like, oh, you're going to sue? You in what army? Like, this town belongs to me. We've all seen My Cousin Vinny. I guess my message here is that it's not good to hit someone in the head.
No, it isn't.
That isn't necessarily good policing. But I guess when you're dealing with a drunk Ike Clanton who is accusing you, a casino owner, and a lawman of the town of malpractice, you have no choice.
Ike wakes up in jail and Virgil refuses to give Ike his gun back until he sobers up.
So Ike's never getting his gun back?
Well, also he has to make sure that Ike is headed out of town to give him his gun back because otherwise Ike is carrying his gun in town.
I should also mention here too that Ike Clanton is played by Stephen Lang, who's a really solid character actor. And even though I have seen this movie a kabillion times, constantly forget that he is playing Ike Clanton because he looks so not like himself. I'm so used to seeing him with very short hair and as someone in the army. And he also was a very critical small role in the film Public Enemies, who had the honor of shooting Jonathan Depp. Sorry, side note.
That's fine. So another cowboy threatens Wyatt in the street and Wyatt pulls the pistol out of the cowboy's belt and hits him on the head with the pistol butt. So we get another example of buffaloing.
It is all happening. Doc gets a visit from the doctor, from an internist, if you will, who tells him that he is dying He's got maybe a couple of years left, and in order to have those couple of years, he has to significantly change his lifestyle.
Yeah, and Kate is not interested in losing her meal ticket. Would you say that this relationship seems a little bit codependent?
It might be a little bit more like a 60-40 situation. He seems like he could take or leave her, although she seems to be a bad influence on him.
I mean, that she's a professional mistress, as it were.
They all were. That was the only way to make money.
Also, men outnumbered women 9-1 in that town.
So yeah, might as well.
A bunch of cowboys ride into town shooting in the air. Like, do they not have a bullet budget? Why so much shooting? Were bullets did they cost nothing?
That's possible. They could have been very cheap. Also, the shooting up into the air thing has always been mystifying for me, because obviously those bullets have to come down at some point. Where did they come down to? I've always been curious and deeply concerned about this practice.
I was just thinking about that the other night. Like, would bullets not reincur velocity on the way back down?
I don't know what that means, because all I did was rip off my own papers about Taxi Driver at college. But in theory, yes, they would still be a weapon. Is that what you were saying in your smart words?
When you shoot the bullet, the gun, everything, it gives it velocity. It's when they talk about bullet speed. But if you shoot the bullet into the air, at some point it comes back down. So I'm wondering, even though it's quite lightweight, would it not regain velocity on the way back down to hit something?
It seems like it would.
This must not be a thing, or there'd be ordinances against shooting into the air. I don't know if there are or aren't. I'm not a gun person.
It seems very wasteful. And yeah, so they're riding into town, and Wyatt turns to Sam Elliott and is like, well, I guess you better swear me in. So either a year ago or a day ago, whenever they arrived in town, you couldn't give this job away. And now the whole family's in it. And they're just throwing out badges to everybody. You get a badge, you get a badge. Everybody's getting a badge. And also the swearing in process, pretty lightweight. So basically, Doc Holliday challenging Ike Clanton to a spelling bee is the inciting incident of history's most overinflated event.
Yes.
And going to collect the guns from the cowboys that they're not supposed to have because they are in town is the thing that is the final tipping point.
If we have not touched on this already, the gunfight at the OK Corral did not take place at the OK Corral. Just to give you a sense of how much mythologizing has been a part of this gunfight from the very beginning.
Okay, so question on that. It's in the general vicinity of the OK Corral, though, correct?
It's nearby, but it's definitely not there. It's like, you'd say it's around the block if you were there. It's near the photography studios. So there's the possibility that there could have also been photo flashes going off at the same time that there are bullets, just to confuse people. Well, I actually have a map here from one of the books. There's OK Corral marked in one place and gunfight site marked all the way on the other side of the block. You walk to the corner, walk down the side of the block, and turn another corner.
So that's bullshit, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't there.
Which is why this movie is called Tombstone, because the gunfight takes place in Tombstone.
You cannot argue that it was in Tombstone.
They're marching to the gunfight at not the OK Corral, all four of them. So it's the three Earp brothers, and then Doc pulls himself out of bed to catch up with them, and he
has
bathed in sweat.
So he's wearing this collarless shirt with this triangle of sweat going down to the middle of his chest. And people are watching them walk through town as they go. This is a rare case where I don't find the badass walking shots sequence to be overplayed or overdone. Because as you know, I have a film studies thesis in my head called Why Standing and Walking is No Longer Badass. Because too many filmmakers do a lazy filmmaking thing where they mean to convey badassery by showing shots of people walking purposefully in a group toward the camera. And it's massively overdone. I'm going to make an exception for this.
There's also a building on fire in the background for reasons. No one addresses the building on fire at any point. Everyone's just like, look, those cool dudes are going to go get the guns.
Well, did Johnny Beehn or someone say that they were on the fire department at the beginning?
Probably.
Because the bureaucracy in this town is incredibly inefficient. And Johnny Beehn claims he disarmed the guys they're about to go shoot, right? And then we have this gunfight, and the choreography of it is great. I'm not going to break it down shot by shot because that would just be too boring. The gunfight itself was about 30 seconds. The sequence is about that long, and you should totally watch it.
It's giving a lot of credit to this because there are a lot of people in this gunfight, and you know where they all are. Like, it's no more chaotic to watch than it probably was to experience. But I do feel like you have a good sense of place and where people are in the gunfight, which is it's not easy to put a lot of people in a scene and have them all shooting at each other and have any idea what's going on.
Moving into the confrontation, they show these close shots of the faces, and there's one where Doc winks. And again, you should just watch it. And I know you talked about this last time, but what does Doc mean when he calls someone a daisy?
Daisy was a term for something that was lovely or beautiful or spectacular, and the Doc is being sarcastic. So when he says, well, you're a daisy if you do, he's like, aren't you special?
So Johnny Beehn, who was hiding in the photography studio, where for some reason Josie just happened to be having her picture taken, says all of them are under arrest, and Wyatt says, no, I don't think you'll be arresting us today, which is absolutely what you should do when a cop tries to arrest you. Just stare him down and say, no, I don't think you'll be arresting us today.
By the way, the theater troupe is still in town, and she looks shockingly untraumatized for what is just unfolded in front of her. She's smiling at Wyatt, and she's all like, you saved the day. And I'm like, his brothers are bleeding. People are dead. Because we immediately followed this with a parade of glass-topped caskets belonging to various cowboys being walked through town. And we're kind of having this sort of like, shooting people is bad conversation.
We have another case of time being meaningless in Tombstone. They say that spring is coming, but this gunfight happened in late October of 1881, so I don't understand if a few months have passed. I don't know if the seasons operate differently in Arizona. I'm just confused. But yeah. I think because I remarked in what is now the prior episode that about 28 months passed between the Earp brothers arriving in Tombstone and getting out of there. But there's no indication of seasons passing. There's nothing to tell us. So,
question. So how long... What is the time span from when this gunfight happened and when they pieced out of town? Like, where is this on their time in Tombstone? Because it feels like it's been 3 days.
The gunfight at the OK Corral occurred on October 26th of 1881. The inquest was convened on October 28th.
So I just found Morgan Earp, spoiler alert for something we're going to talk about in 5 minutes, in March of 1882.
So there are months that go by where they're all just wandering around town.
The Earp Vendetta ride, as it is known, that follows it, takes place from March 20th to April 15th. So there's been like an awkward 6-month period where everyone is kind of just uncomfortably walking around town like, hey, they killed those guys and took their guns, and wow, that's awkward. And then 6 months later, they kill Morgan.
In reality, about a year passed between the death of Fred White and the shooting at the OK Corral, but again, time is a loose concept in Tombstone. And then we have some threats thrown between Johnny Ringo and Doc Holliday.
Oh, do we ever? They're like walking through town, and Johnny Ringo, like the freaking weirdo that he is, says to them, I want your blood and I want your souls. And someone says, well, you got trouble. And immediately I'm like in my Robert Preston happy space. Well, you got trouble, my friends. But anyway, they're not interested. But Doc Holliday's all, I'm your Huckleberry. And it's the most flawless line reading from Val Kilmer. Doc's a dentist. Like, he's a dentist who can play the piano, shoot things, and have TB. Like, he is a Renaissance man.
That's exactly the phrase I was going to use for him. Yes.
This is one of those points in the script that is otherwise flawless, where you sense the trimming of things, because in a big hurry, we're seeing that Biehn is getting in league with the Cowboys to rid themselves of this Earp family problem, which, okay. And it seems like he's doing this primarily out of vengeance for him stealing the theater troupe girlfriend who will not leave. If this movie were clocking itself on a real clock and not a clock that's made out of like alphabetical letters and wingdings, she's in town now for like 18 months, which is insane. No one wants to see that show that many times. So we cut to a stormy night. Bill Paxton is playing pool, and there's a very pretty dog in this movie who does a wonderful performance. And the women are reading their tarot cards, and they pull the Tower and Death. The Tower is not a great card to get, but Death is way iffier and less literally about death and can be read a couple different ways. And I know how you feel about this stuff, so we can move on.
So Josie shows up in the middle of this. I love where one of the other Earp women says, I wish you'd learn a real card game. Almost immediately, a cowboy starts just shooting into the house.
Yeah, and the best part of this is Maddie's reaction is so delayed because drugs are amazing. She's kind of like, yeah.
She's a great advertisement for opium. Like, look at all the upsetting things that are happening around her, and it leaves her unfazed.
Yeah. Which, I mean, what else are you going to do when you live in this time period? And this is like the most cleaned up version of that time period imaginable.
Yes. So Morgan and Wyatt are at the bar, and Virgil comes in shot. They take Virgil back to the house, and we learn that Virgil is going to lose use of an arm, and Morgan hears a gunshot and runs outside.
And Wyatt is doing that thing that, like, you know, that people do sometimes when you're in the middle of something really crazy and they're just like all their, you know, and they're like Lois Birding you with like, I gotta have my hat. You know, he's trying to talk to Virgil, and this is the second best line reading in this film by a female character. He doesn't want to talk now, Wyatt. And it's like, yeah, there's like a doctor trying to dig a bullet out of his arm with pioneer medicine. Like, yeah, he doesn't want to talk to you, Wyatt. And 3 of the Cowboys turn immediately on the Cowboys because they shot at the women and tell Wyatt, we're with you now. And it's like, that's their breaking point. And boy, do they arrive at it quickly.
Whoever engineered this means of revenge was either very dumb, or they just shoot into the house and don't make any attempt to trail the Earps. But the person, the one who tells them, we're done with them, we don't like that they shot at your woman, is Michael Rooker, who I did not recognize because I'm used to seeing him painted blue with a mohawk, which is how he appears as Yondu in the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies.
Yeah. Michael Rooker is fabulous. He is very famous for playing Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, and was also on The Walking Dead for several years. He was supposedly very difficult to work with. And there's been possibly apocryphal stories about how he's needed someone to be a minder for him on set to keep him away from the other actors. But I don't know. I wasn't there, and he seems delightful enough. I'm not here to start trouble with Michael Rooker. Then we have like what starts as a super elegant shot where Bill Paxton is queuing up his pool shot, and then he gets shot in the back, and it's really well done, but then they go into like slow-mo, and that is a little excessive. But also what follows this too is that we see this awful effort to try and remove the bullet from him. And the doctor just finally kind of like walks away and is like, can't get it out, sorry. And the Earps are all just like, we came here to profit off of people's weakness and live in peace. And now we're all deputized into law enforcement. And one of us is dead, and it's the worst if you give a mouse a cookie story in the history of ever. And it's really sad that Morgan is dying because he is the prettiest, and also Bill Paxton is the best.
I assume that this doctor went on to work on President Garfield.
Probably. Sticking his hands in there, getting his dirty fingers all up in Garfield's business, slowly killing him.
Yeah. Yeah, he probably shows up at the White House and says, hey, I worked on an Earp brother, and they're like, cool, we'll make you the physician here. So in real life, Morgan Earp is recorded as saying, I have played my last game of pool after being shot. I am sure that given the amount of time that they have, he could probably be saved today.
This would be like an afternoon in the ER today. I am always impressed with people who are clever as they're bleeding out. And then Wyatt's pretty unhappy, and he goes out into the street for that Oscar moment of screaming no into the sky while everyone looks at him, and it rains.
This is a good moment. This is a good moment to reflect again that Tombstone, pardon the cliche, is more than the sum of its parts, because no scenes usually make me laugh.
And Maddie pulls herself out of her stupor to go out and try and bring Wyatt home, and happens to bump into Josie, who's also trying to pull Wyatt out of the street. And it's awkward.
Maddie, like, she's out of it because the thing for her to do when he's going into this crisis moment is she should just put her arms around him and hold him and not care about all the blood on him. That's what she should do.
Also, she should give him some laudanum.
I'm so annoyed we can't walk into a store and buy it anymore.
I mean, it's for the best.
And just look at how much this woman isn't even noticing.
Yeah, I guess also, too, like, I mean, what else are you gonna do for fun?
Yeah, I guess you could go to Josie's show again.
How many times can you see that show, though? It's been in town for like 25 years.
It's like the Cats or the Les Mis of Tombstone.
She won't leave.
Yeah. So Maddie is kind of useless, and Virgil takes the woman out of town. In real life, they sent Maddie off to Wyatt's parents, which gets awkward after a while.
I want that movie. Send your like your drug addicted former sex worker common law wife back to live with the Earp parents
in California.
Played by Gene Hackman and Betty Buckley in boring Tombstone. As they're driving out of town, you have the Powers Boothe line reading, for all time of them saying, "You win, it's over now, we're going." And he just looks at them and he goes, "Well, bye." I bow down, Powers Boothe. So they're supposed to follow Wyatt to the train to ambush them again and try and finish the job. And Wyatt manages to outsmart them, and he shoots, is it John Corbett with him this time? It doesn't matter. It's Ike Clanton and possibly John Corbett. It's some guy. And he shoots some guy and then cuts Ike Clanton with his spur and tells him, "You called down the thunder. Well, now you've got it. Cowboys are finished. You understand me? Tell him I'm coming and hell's coming with me. Hell's coming with me." And everybody's deputized. He's deputized those other 3 cowboys. Everybody's a cop now. It's like Miami in 1983. Like, you get to be a cop now. You're sentient and haven't been arrested in the last 2 weeks. You're a cop now because we have to fight the drug wars. And that's exactly what's happening here. And I couldn't help but notice, it seems like there's a little bit of a police overreach happening here. We go into this sequence of shotguns and double guns, and it's madness, and people are just getting shot everywhere. And I know it's the 1880s, but they're just murdering people. I had a moment where I was like, cops are allowed to just murder like this back then. And then I was like, now who's being naive, Kay? Like, of course, since time immemorial, we've let cops do pretty much whatever they want. So they're in a shootout moment with Curly Bill and another guy who might or might not also be John Corbett. They're trapped behind a log in a river, and Wyatt just stands up and starts saying, "No, no," and starts shooting at them, and they keep missing him. Somehow he never gets shot, and he kills the cowboy who may or may not be John Corbett, and Curly Bill dies here. And it's just this sequence of him shooting at them and not getting shot back. We find out that Johnny Ringo is looking for them. And this is one of those things too, where like we just talked about, this was a 35-day period under which they were engaging in this behavior, maybe 36. And like, you could in theory never be seen again in a vast country such as America in the 1880s. And I don't understand how someone can be looking for you and find you. And I'm like, okay, he's alone. Yeah. And then we happen across Sheriff Biehn and a bunch of other cowboys, and the theater group has finally left town only to have Billy Zane get shot, which is very sad. We don't see any of this. And this is, again, one of those sequences that you can tell there was probably like 5 more minutes of movie or screenplay somewhere where this shit gets explained, which it absolutely does not here. Dana Delaney calls them all monsters and animals, and Jason Priestley bails on the cowboys and their group hunting for Wyatt Earp because he is secretly in love with Billy Zane. And that's a wrap on Jason Priestley in this movie. I suspect that the original movie had his character going and getting involved with, like, catching up with Wyatt's gang somehow and possibly being involved in that aspect of the movie. But nevertheless, it does not happen. He just rides off and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And whose house should Wyatt and the gang happen upon but Charlton Heston in what I thought would be his final film appearance when I was looking at IMDb, and it is not. And that would be his final film appearance besides Bowling for Columbine. But it is not. He's in a bunch of stuff after this too. And who else should happen to be at this farm but a completely recovered from her trauma Dana Delaney, who's watering her horses, and she's already leaving before she and Wyatt have any more time to spend together except to like exchange pleasantries for like 2 minutes. And then she rides off and Michael Rooker takes her, and then someone comes back with Michael Rooker's corpse dragged behind him and is sending a message that Johnny Ringo wants a gunfight. And so someone points up at the top of a mountain far in the distance and says, "Meet there at sunset tomorrow." And I'm like, okay, good luck, everybody. Follow the finger.
Doc is a real mess health-wise, more so than usual, and we see Doc and Wyatt saying goodbye, and Wyatt hands him the Marshal's star, and Wyatt goes off to die in this fight with Johnny Ringo, but Doc turns up for the fight instead to take on Johnny Ringo, because Doc is the man to do it.
Yes, he is. And he was faking his sickness and asked to wear the Marshal's star so he would be deputized like everybody else and therefore allowed to legally kill because we're allowed to do that. This is a great scene. It's really well choreographed fighting. Like, Michael Biehn is not nearly the actor that Val Kilmer is, and most people aren't, so that's not meant to be a slight at him. But he does really good work in this scene, and it is the doppelganger effect, like your professor said, and it's a great shootout moment, and it ends with Doc saying, "Poor soul, you were just too high-strung," after he shoots him.
Unfortunately, there is no evidence that Doc Holliday or Wyatt Earp killed Johnny Ringo in real life. Johnny Ringo was found dead of apparent suicide via gunshot wound to the head a while later, and both Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday had an alibi and were in another state.
You are just stealing the fun.
So Doc leaves the star on Johnny Ringo's dead body because...
So are we to presume now that Johnny Ringo has also been deputized into the Marshal Service in Tombstone?
He said, yeah, and he says, apparently my hypocrisy does not extend that far.
We have a final sort of finish them montage that is them riding around and killing remaining people, closing off all the loose ends. There's a handshake while they're riding very quickly on horses moment, which I was like stressed about.
I was impressed with this because it was close in and you could see both of their faces in it.
Yeah.
So they were doing their own riding there.
That's also another thing to call out here, too, is like this was 1993. You couldn't fake a lot of the stuff that's happening in this movie in 1993. You couldn't fake the sunsets. You couldn't fake the riding. This is all like quotidian technical stuff that gets done all the time in movie making, but it's still like it's really impressive and worth noting how good they are at riding the horses. And they probably put a lot of work into that. Those guns, like we know now that Alec Baldwin shot a woman on a set of a film. Like, we know how unsafe, weaponry can be on film, and they all learned how to do it and shoot an awful lot in this movie. And I just want to give a shout out to our technical people who made that a safe set and who taught them how to ride safely and taught them how to do all this stuff, because those people don't get enough credit, and they show up and do the job and they do it really well. And when you have a movie that has this many complicated layers of fighting and gunplay and animals, it's pretty impressive.
After the Vendetta ride, Doc dies in a sanitarium in Colorado. Doc Holliday went to this sanitarium and inhaled sulfur fumes from the springs to prolong his life, a medical practice that we now know would hasten death by tuberculosis. And Wyatt visits Doc's bedside and he says, "You're no hypocrite, Doc. You just like to sound like one." He gives him a book that he's written called My Friend Doc Holliday, which is not a thing that happened. And Doc wants Wyatt to leave, probably because he doesn't want him to see him like this. And they play the saddest card game ever, where it's like Wyatt is looking at the cards to give Doc a handful of really good ones and keep like low number ones for himself. Doc mentions that he was in love with his 15-year-old cousin once and that she joined a convent. This actually happened. The love between them is so beautiful in this goodbye scene, and a thing that is recorded as having really happened. Doc looks down at his bare feet, says, well, I'll be damned, this is funny, and then dies. And there's this implication that Doc sees the light at the end. And I want to know, why does Doc see the light and Morgan didn't?
The light to hell? I read that moment completely differently, I think because of the assertion that he wanted to die with his boots on. I took that as him looking down at his feet and being like, not dying with my boots on. After all that, that's how I read that.
Okay. I took that as Morgan talks about seeing a light at the end, and then when Morgan is dying, he says, I can't see anything. I took that as Doc was seeing the light that Morgan couldn't, and wondered, why is this bestowed on Doc and not on Morgan? But your reading could be correct, too.
I think also Morgan probably couldn't see because that doctor had inserted a bunch of disease into him. And also, it is a different kind of death where he was laying very still and he was in a bright room and Morgan was in a pool hall with a man digging around in his arm. So I guess Wyatt then decides to search the world over to find Josie again.
Well, I found out that they actually met up again in California, but here he finds her in Colorado. And Josie's saying her parents were rich was part of her personal myth-making. They were hardworking people. They were successful enough, but she had her own piece of the mythos. And I'm wondering how he knew to find her in Denver. And the snowflakes falling in their hair all look fake.
That's straight up asbestos.
And you see people walking around just wearing not a thick enough coat for a Colorado winter where it's snowing. Wyatt and Josie were together for the rest of his life, and they were all over the place. They went to Alaska for the gold rush up there. And then they wind up in California where he starts doing some consulting on old Westerns. And then moving into the closing credits, we get another awesome posse walk, this time through an empty town. We cannot get enough of them walking. We have to get more film of them walking. And then the end credits confused my dad when I watched this movie with him over 20 years ago, because an Earp family descendant who is also named Wyatt Earp acts in this movie. I think he's one of the cowboys. It's a small role. And far down in the credits, you see a character name, and then you see Wyatt Earp on the other side. So my father got very confused by this in the closing credits.
I can appreciate that. Also, this end walk is almost it's an old movie throwback. I think because we were just talking about the Wild Bunch, I'm remembering Wild Bunch's sort of character gallery at the end is top of mind.
Tombstone is so much fun, and there's a darkness there that you can access if you want to. Or you can just have fun.
I love this movie. Everyone should watch this movie. It's delightful.
What is it, do you think, about Tombstone that makes all the pieces of it come together into something so much bigger than what it would seem to be?
It's played, it manages to not drag you down with sorrow at any point, even though there's a lot to be sad about. The actors are all actors who won't win and don't win awards, but show up and do the work. The characters are great. They're richer than they need to be. They're more memorable than they need to be. It's quotable. It's funny. It's a magical movie. I can't even begin to explain why it's so great. It's just so great.
Okay. So we have some egregiously short awards talk to go over. This is the year that Tommy Lee Jones gets Best Supporting Actor for The Fugitive. It was the year of Schindler's List and The Piano. It was also the year that Holly Hunter and Emma Thompson were both nominated for both Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress. This was also the year that Martin Scorsese was snubbed for The Age of Innocence in both the Best Picture and Best Director categories, as was Thelma Schoonmaker for editing. So, Sarah, if Martin Scorsese is your Lord and Savior, what does that make Thelma Schoonmaker?
Virgin Mother Mary. Next question.
Hail Thelma, full of grace, Marty is with thee.
Indeed. Here's the thing. As much as I would have liked to see My Sweetheart Val Kilmer nominated for an Oscar for this film, this was a tough year for acting. Tom Hanks did transcendent work in Philadelphia this year. I am not going to make the case that Tombstone should have elbowed out Schindler's List for Best Picture, but I do know which of those films I am going to watch if they both come on a rainy Sunday afternoon. TLJ winning Best Supporting Actor here. If I were able to shuffle the Dax and Necromance, there's two interesting performances that he gave that were richer and more complex than The Fugitive. Off the top, Thaddeus Stevens in Lincoln and in No Country for Old Men. I would have rather seen him win the award for that. But then if I'm bouncing him, finds in Schindler's List is like one of the darkest characters in the history of ever and is a really fantastic performance. And I would have really liked to see him win for that. So I'm shuffling things around, but basically Val Kilmer should have been part of the conversation, and I can't help but think that the popcorny nature of this film and the fact that it wasn't like a serious movie, because you can see the delineation between like the serious and the not serious movies in a year like 1994. Piano, Philadelphia, Schindler's List, serious movies. Tombstone, no. It's a weird win because he is the most electric part of that movie, but also it's not even like a career achievement award. Like, if we owe you this for all the times that we didn't give it to you, it's kind of curious. I think that it's the least interesting performance Tommy Lee Jones has given, but you know, what can we do? Val Kilmer has, as we put up on our Instagram, a statue sitting on the burial plot that Kurt Russell bought him as a gift after they made this movie in the town of Tombstone, dedicated to his performance in that film by the people of Tombstone. And that is a prize in itself, I guess. He also didn't seem to be in it for the prizes. Val Kilmer had a Brando-ish quality where it seemed like he could take it or leave it a little bit, but it's a bummer because he was a really unique talent. And he played like his children made a wonderful documentary about him called Val. When they lined up all of the performances that he has given over the years, it's kind of bananas, the characters he has played and the real people he has played. He had a really incredible career. And I was playing a fun game of alternate casting because, as I mentioned, I was watching Boring Tombstone, and Michael Madsen is in that movie. And Michael Madsen was the first choice for Vincent Vega in Pulp Fiction and turned that down because he was making Wyatt Earp. And John Travolta is wonderful in that film, but I would also like an alternative track world where Val Kilmer is playing Vincent Vega. I don't even know if he was in consideration for that part. I would have loved to see him do that dance sequence. I've got another piece of mind-blowing alternate casting to mention here too. Consider the source. I read it on like MSN.com or something, where apparently Willem Dafoe had been in the running to play Doc Holliday, which I adore Willem Dafoe. I do not want him to replace Val Kilmer, but again, like if I can have an alternate universe that I can live in concurrently where I could see what he would have done with this character, I would like that very much, because I think that he also would have made a meal out of it and would have had a great time. Anyway, back to awards.
The only award nominations that we could find record of Tombstone receiving were at the 1994 MTV Movie Awards, where Val Kilmer was nominated for Best Male Performance as well as Most Desirable Male, which is a feat given that he was playing a character who might hack blood and phlegm on you. But, it's probably time for us to move on to choice dialogue.
You're right.
So I taught there was a lot there. I'm going to put this here. The line reminds me of me. No, I'm sure of it. I hate him. Beyond that, other lines that I loved are, I already got a guilty conscience, might as well have the money too. Also, they're shooting at us. They're actually shooting at us. Doc's first line to Wyatt, I am rolling. And then there was an exchange where he asks her, what's your idea of heaven? And she says, room service, because I would love to live in a hotel. I would love to just feel taken care of all the time. And I would love to not worry about the cost of room service.
I too would love to live in a hotel. I've kind of called mine out as we've gone through. But, certainly I know Let's Have a Spelling Bee and the way that that's delivered is so great. Well by. There's a lot of good stuff. So many good lines in this.
So it's time to score this thing. Sarah, can you please give our listeners a quick refresher on how we score movies?
I'd be happy to. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas we find to be subjectively and or objectively important to most films, but especially tailored this list to issues particular to biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
Indeed. I'll go first. So for appearances, makeup, and hair, I gave it a 9. For acting and casting, I gave it a 9. I took 1 off for Josie. For passage of time, I gave it a 2, and that was great inflation. For costuming, I gave it a 10 for the reasons I cite at the beginning of part 1. Quality of the script, I gave it an 8. For accuracy, I gave it a 4, which may, I'll admit, have been great inflation. For storytelling, was it cliched? Was it interesting? Was it inventive? I gave it a 10. For production value, I gave it a 10. For production, direction, decision making, I gave it a 9. And for do we care, I gave it a 9, because even though I don't care about this gunfight, the amount of work that I did in terms of reading and finding podcasts and all the forms of research was greater than what I've done for some films where I actually cared a lot about the subject matter, just trying to figure out why I should care, the totality of my actions reflected a high level of caring. So that brings my final score, my average, to 8 on the dot, and I am using the bye, which gives it a 9 for Tombstone, which I think is fair.
So my scores, outward appearances gave it a 9. Acting and casting also gave it a 9. Passage of time, 2. Being generous. Costuming, 10, also for the same reasons that you mentioned, really impressed by the work that went into that. Quality of the script, I gave it a 9. Maybe a little great inflation, but I mean the fact that they trimmed this down into such a concise story with only a few bumps, and I loved it, and it was fun, and I don't hate fun. Accuracy, 5. Storytelling, I give it a 9 because they bent time. Production value, I gave it a 9, and shout out again to the brilliant Catherine Hardwicke. Production, direction, decision making, 10. Do we care? I gave it an 8. Same reasons. Stupid thing that happened, but I find myself caring very deeply about everyone in this movie for reasons I can't possibly explain, except that I love this movie. I am also using my bye this week, and my score came to an 8, and then with the bye, it's a 9.
So 9 on the dot. I think that's fair. It was Tombstone. Tombstone, you earned a 9, so you have earned a second opinion.
We stole this element of our show blatantly from How Did This Get Made?
Prize for scoring above an 8 or below a 4 is that you get to hear us make fun of IMDb reviewers who disagreed with our assessment of the film. Sarah, can you read this first one, please?
Of course. 1 out of 10. The worst Western ever? ? Written by Perronaut on January 10th, 2013. I hate this movie. The makers of this dreck should be forced, like Alex in A Clockwork Orange, to watch the good, the bad, and the ugly over and over and over again until they understand what a Western should feel like. This is a Hollywood Western, overacted, cliche, horse manure. The 90s equivalent of Roy Rogers. All flair with no depth or reality. Every line is this movie sounds like a catchphrase. Every shot in this movie looks like it belongs in a commercial or a music video. I suppose if you just want to be entertained with brain left at home, then this crap might be for you. As for me, I'll take a dirty, gritty Sergio Leone, Clint Eastwood Western any day. 41 out of 59 people found this helpful.
I think that Perronaut, I think I want to send him a box of psilocybin mushrooms to broaden his perspective on what a Western can be.
I debate, like, on its face, this argument that they should be forced to watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly like Alex in Clockwork Orange. I don't know how familiar you are with that material, but he's being forced to watch torture.
Not a good analogy if that's what they want.
Like, have fun. This movie's telling you that you're a party pooper, is what it is. Perronaut, if you can't see the joy, the sheer joy of this film, you just hate fun.
I agree. I will read the next one. 1 star out of 10. Title: Lame. Written by Brock Sampson 86 on November 1st, 2014. Where to begin with this trifle of a film? Christ. First, let me give you my rating. Ass out of 5 stars. Let me just say this. Orange. This is the orangest movie I've ever seen. Then ham. Every actor hams it up. Even Kilmer! ! Who you normally wouldn't expect it from. The plot meanders until the last 30 minutes, when it turns into your standard Western revenge fare, and then all of a sudden fairy tale ending. Yay. If you want to vomit in rage, then this is your movie. If you expect actual character development, though, try Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. I have to read this with a straight face. Try Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. It's the bee's knees. And 16 out of 31 people found Brock Sampson 86's review helpful.
I don't even know where to begin. Like, first co-opting my phrase that I stole from 150 years ago, the bee's knees. Not real happy about that. Orange?
I don't understand how orange is an adjective for the type of bad movie that Brock Sampson 86 thinks this is. As a Venture Brothers fan, I'm bothered that someone who takes their handle from a Venture Brothers character dislikes this movie that we love. I think I love Tombstone more than Venture Brothers.
I'm going to take umbrage with the drama of the statement, if you want to vomit in rage. Like, what are you even talking about, Brock? Like, Donald Trump has the nuclear codes. Like, what the hell is wrong with you, Brock Sampson?
The thing that made me this stand out to me was first them saying to go watch boring Tombstone with Kevin Costner, and then using, yes, your flapper catchphrase, the bee's knees. I was like, was this person trying to annoy Sarah? So I had to put it in.
Is this my John Hinckley? Like, am I getting secret messages here on the internet?
So other stuff that you should watch instead. Well, no, you should watch Tombstone. Subjectively speaking, it is my favorite Wyatt Earp movie. It is a fun watch, and you should absolutely watch it. If you want an older Wyatt Earp movie, consider 1957's Gunfight at the OK Corral. The bromance between Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas in Gunfight at the OK Corral is so beautiful that it bridges on being worthy of Pride Month inclusion. It has a sparkling, memorable supporting performance by Joe Van Fleet. A word of caution on it, the theme sung by Frankie Lane, particularly the verse about Boot Hill in this theme song, is an earworm as bad as In the Year 2525 and Hang On Sloopy.
So in terms of my recommendations, I am going to very highly recommend the documentary Val about the life of Val Kilmer, made by his children. It's so lovely. Also, Kurt Russell, great actor, see Miracle and The Thing for two really wonderful Kurt Russell performances. Escape from New York, he's also amazing in that. And also Powers Boothe in the Guyana tragedy, playing Jim Jones. Wonderful in that.
Sarah, with that, can you please take us out?
So first, our podcast baby has matured and is toddling about, and we have launched a Patreon, just simply an effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing our show to you, platform hosting, recording, research, and we have to occasionally order a book off the internet or pay for a movie rental. We are offering shout-outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes to anyone who chips in for us, and with that, we'd love to thank Gates, who is already signed up. And if anyone wants to join Gates, please go ahead and do so.
Thank you, Gates.
Thank you, Gates. If you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we have visual aids from our episodes. Our Instagram handle is at Biopic a Podcast Story, so do check us out there. And visit our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see the official episode ratings for all of the movies we've done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Our theme music is by Ben Patch. The intro is his song Slater Cannonball, and the outro is Spring Breakers, and you can check him out on Spotify.
Tune in next week when we'll be talking about Ken Russell's The Devils with our first repeat guest, Alana Levin of the Graphic Policy Podcast.
So excited to have them back. So excited to talk about Ken Russell and how unsafe he makes me feel.
I think this movie has Louis XIII of France shooting a giant bird person.
Yeah. And why wouldn't it? It's a Ken Russell movie.
And Oliver Reed.
I think I have a crush on Oliver Reed. We'll talk about it next week.
And it also, advanced trigger warning, contains a 3-word combo that I would have never imagined I'd hear, which is holy water enema. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in to part 2 of our episode on Tombstone. And good night to the earnest and the cynical.
Good night, Rena.
Good night, Sarah.